exhibition. And, you know, we would love you to stop us and ask questions. And I know some of you know the history of Ghana, and these images make sense in historical context. Others of you don't. In some ways, that's by intent, because these images are both, we want you to look at them as artworks, as aesthetic provocations, but we also want to put them in context. And there's always that kind of tension in a set of works like this between those two. So let me just quickly say a few things about the themes, and then let me turn it over to Gerald to give you a little more context. This exhibition is divided into 5 categories, thematic categories, but in a general sense, we want to invite you guys to 1979. We want to invite you to situate yourself in 1979, and 2 things happened in Accra in 1979. One, on June 4th, 1979, there was a coup d'etat which installed Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings as the chairman of the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council. 2, in September 1979, Jerry John Rawlings handed over power to Dr. Hillary Mann as the democratic president of the Third Republic of Ghana. And this confluence of 2 events, this coup d'etat and this democratic handover, is where we want you to be situated. We want you to think about this as a moment in Ghana where there was all sorts of political possibilities. As it was in Accra, many things were happening around the world between the mid-70s and early 80s that gave people sort of hopes and thinking about independence possibilities, about new sovereignties, about music, about style, about culture. Often by the mid-1980s, there was a shutting down of sort of alternative cultural possibilities and a turn towards free market capitalism, a turn towards a political perspective that would lead us to the world order we have today.
So that you can read what's on the wall, the captions. These are photographs I took under sometimes extreme stress. The reason being is when you're dealing with soldiers and their bodyguards, you don't know who you are pleasing and you are not pleasing. Yeah? And those days you didn't know who had been drinking, who had not been drinking. But when you get into a situation where, let's say, the seniority had broken down, like as in June 4th, the junior officers had no respect for the senior officers, especially if you're over a major. And if you're over a major, you don't know what's going to happen. So there's a picture on the far wall there. He was Colonel Limfo, the first one there. And he was the one who gave me my first press accreditation to cover military events. He became a friend. But unfortunately, I'm told he was shot in bed with his wife, you know, during that process. And it's unusual to see a head of state carrying a colleague, you know. But anyway, we'll get around to the revolution. If I'm coming here, this one, they're going to hand over on September something. Yeah, the handing over. So Secretary is there with Rawlings at the airport. That's where he was coming for the handing ceremony. And this is while he was waiting with President Liman, who had been elected to lead the PMP. All right? Now, they went to Old Parliament House, where the military band, the Navy band came in, and the Chief Justices were walking towards Parliament for the swearing in. And I tried to get convergence here, but we're not allowed to stand in front of the chairman or the president. So I moved to the side, and somehow I got it. I mean, he himself will tell you to move over or just get out of the place.
Gerald, I forgot, you mentioned something about Rawlings.
Oh, he says I forgot to say that I had a relationship with Rawlings. Not that kind of relationship. We were classmates. He was my classmate from 1960. So I knew him for over 60 years. So during this, and because the equipment you see down the hall there, that's the equipment I used during that long story short. He said I could vanish. And I said, okay, go ahead and shoot me. The reason being, I had been surrounded by 19 officers with guns. And I took that attitude, okay, go ahead and shoot. Because if you shoot crossfire, you know what the problem is going to be. So I guess took my chances. They didn't allow many people, they didn't allow me to shoot out of the pajamas. Where you look at the armies put on keys, that was all.
These have been stored in cabinets, but they haven't been air conditioned for 40 years. And many of these have, some have been printed, some have never been printed. So when we scan them, we try to scan as high resolution as possible. And then we've touched up a little bit, we tried to actually preserve the ways in which they degraded a little bit. So you kind of see the aging of the image as well. And you know, you can see, I think, the lighting, and Joe, you can talk about the lighting. So the lighting in these kind of situations where you're struggling with a very dynamic situation, you're having to capture something, and I know you're very concerned about light.
So,
Yeah.
my other question is it possible for you to elaborate for us? Because I read last night that Colonel Eninfo was one of the judges during the military.
Yes, he was.
So then I got confused if he was even the chair. So how did they get killed in bed with his wife, and then Boris is now leading the pallbearers or something?
Yeah, okay, he, as far as I'm told, I was not there. He was the chairman of that tribunal. And that's when they decided to put Rollins away. And it was to have been executed on June 4th.
Who wrote it?
Yes. So on June 4th, they sprung him.
They sprung him free, and then there was they did what they had to do, and they made him chairman of the AFRC. So he did have some bitterness in it. But like I told you, that some of the junior those like discipline had broken down. So anything over a major, they disrespected. And even as private citizens, we were told, don't wear political suit, don't wear suit, don't wear a tie. You know, if you did, you had something to answer for. So we're all cautious. But I had, let's say, a suit I had made, photographic suit, with a jacket and trousers, but had 29 pockets because of all that stuff I had to carry with me.
So who was responsible then?
For the shooting?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, no, but it seems like a strange thing. Why would anybody go and shoot the man and his wife? You know? But I have no idea. In some cases, you ask no questions and be told no lies, because sooner or later it leaks and they say, Anna Forson said it. What happens to me?
Do you have a theory?
I can't, because I can only imagine. I mean, I was in Kokromribre in 1979, and I have my own personal issues with Rollins, and I don't want to allow my personal thing to, you know.
As far as I'm told, he was not the one. This we know apparently was, this is the first one, but there were 8 people to be buried that day at the military cemetery in Osu.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to figure out is, he was the chairman of the tribunal.
Yes.
Right? That, you know, so normally most of us would say, okay, then Rollins and his people killed him, right?
Rollins was in prison when he was killed.
Oh, he wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to clarify, so
that's what we need to know.
Specific history that's not, I didn't want to bore people too much, but Rawlings tried a failed coup on May 15, 1979. Rawlings and several of his classmates and friends went through Burma camp, which is the main military camp, and basically tried to start some unrest. It wasn't very well planned, even according to Rawlings' own account. And he was arrested along with 6, I think, or 8 of his colleagues. They were put on trial. The trial started, I think, May 26th or 28th. Colonel Ninfo was the head of public relations for the Army, and he was the chair of this public tribunal. The government had thought putting Rawlings on trial would embarrass him and prevent further unrest. Of course, as we all know, no publicity is bad publicity. So the trial made Rawlings into a hero, because he then made these brave statements saying things like, you know, leave my men alone, which was cited in the newspaper. I'm responsible, so if anyone's to suffer, I will take responsibility.
Yeah.
Immediately, the unrest among soldiers, which had been there, kind of coalesced, and they said, we need to release this guy, we need to get rid of these corrupt people in the military. So how the coup started is a tale for another day, but Rawlings was in prison when the coup happened, and he didn't know a coup was going to happen. They released him from his arrest, and then so he goes from being in prison to suddenly at the front of this revolutionary movement.
Yeah.
But so there's a huge controversy there.
Thank you.
He was literally in jail when he was killed. So
Okay, thank you. That helps.
So if you've heard about Nicholson Stadium, this was there, and just shortly after.
and he was addressing the troops. Of course, Wachijan here, we are told, was normally in control of things, but Wachijan was my senior 2 years. And it's difficult to ask him a few things. Moving down here, you can see how the troops were around him. They didn't allow people to get too close. So with me with the camera, if anything had gone wrong, I was the one who had the evidence. And this one, I was asked by West Africa to get some pictures of them, and this was it. So I went in there to shoot this, and when I got in there, there were 19 soldiers with submachine guns, so SMG. And I looked at them, and they were like straight face. And they said, "What's your problem?" I said, "Please, I went here with a camera to shoot film. If you had got guns," and they said, "Just buy and do it." You know, so I did it, and then sent the film out straight to the airport. In a land bag, nobody knew what was there. Not even me. I just prayed a lot that nothing went off. Where we are.
Finish these and then I'll say something.
This man was a friend of mine also, Captain Henry Smith at the time. I'm told he was very instrumental, but he was quiet. Then one day he picked me up and said, "Jerry, let's go to the range." I didn't know why. So he took me out to Michelle Camp, and then when he did some practice, he gave me the gun and then said, "Shoot, let's see what you can do." And when I did some shooting, he said, "You are dangerous." Because I shot 72 points, you know. And like I said, when they say do something, just do it. You know, it's difficult to say no.
Reject.
Sorry.
These are more funerals. I don't know which was who, but Apalua, there was a Navy man on the Air Force board. Apalua, what was he, captain or something like that? Captain, he was captain, right? Navy captain. Yeah, so this was his funeral.
Let's stop there for a second, the military ones. Just so quickly, so in terms of the capturing different moments of kind of military unrest, I was fascinated with the way he captured the individuals in the midst of these kinds of upheaval moments. So I think that some of these images capture kind of people in the midst of kind of unusual circumstances. And I love these pictures of Henry, this triptych. You see the kind of behind the scenes of the soldier, and these kind of movements from different kinds of moments of uncertainty. So maybe we can do these next and then come back.
After the annual in Parliament House, Jerry Rawlings decided to go and join the troops again. They objected to it in that nobody who has ever stationed goes back to join the troops and then go on a march past. But he went and he went behind with Daki also there. So then they worked informally, then you find out down here. Yeah.
So, just to emphasize this one, it's a sort of moment of uncertainty because Rawlings, as you were saying, they've just handed over power, and here's a former head of state who suddenly fled into me.
They didn't want him to go and join the troops, really. I was there.
So literally, this ritual sort of enacts this uncertainty. What do you do with the former head of state who's now suddenly in the military again, and he's supposed to rejoin the troops? What does that mean when literally 3 months ago they've just overthrown the government? So one of the things I think is powerful about these images is they display the complexities of power and the uncertainty. Just in reading the images, you get a sense, wait a minute, what is the possibility of something? They're inventing rituals. This is a new democratic government. They're literally inventing rituals to kind of install a new president, and then they weren't really sure what to do.
Some of you may have remembered, I think somebody, Edward Nasser also, he was assassinated on parade.
Yeah.
Okay? Now the thing is, nobody knew whose gun had a bullet. So here, with them marching past, nobody knows who has a bullet.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, wait a minute, they can't do the march past. But because all the members of the FRC joined this march past. And, well, it was one of those things.
Do you want
What?
to start here, and then we can
No, he selected the picture, so you should do something.
So two things about this selection here is one is we wanted to contrast the military images here with the kind of more daily life. So these are from what, 76, I think.
76.
78. So we wanted to show in some ways the military on one side, then walking down the kind of more informality, but similar kind of portraiture and sensibility.
This was the one on the military, on a Russian ship.
The Russian ship to Cuba. And when we got to Cuba, they said there had been a palace coup. Yeah, FWK Akufo had taken over from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we should
From a
declare-
shampoo.
Yeah, so we should declare our stand. Of course, I didn't know what to say, you know. And then the BNI came and told us we're not going to be given any more money.
Cut you off.
Yeah, that is it.
So the other thing I wanted to try and do in putting the images together was show certain kinds of repetitions, similar image or a similar pose from slightly different angles. Because I think one of the things that you said about your work that I also appreciate is the way you capture offbeat images or capture someone unexpectedly. So this is Gambia, right? This is Ivana Gambia, and the Gambian president's wife, and seeing her just slightly shifted. And this also the picture of the Gambian president looking at his watch. So this would never be the one that you would use, but in some ways it's the most
It's like an
evocative.
Irish, This one is self-explanatory.
Well, but who? So
But some of you know this, some of you know this.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, because I like to go to the last episode.
So this is an Abra dancer. Is this in Kumasi or is
You
this?
see how this is in Kumasi. You see how he's watching. We all know what he was watching.
So contrasting some of these kind of informal moments. So this is the king of Ashanti. So for those of you who don't know history, so this is a very significant sort of political picture in certain ways. Informal, but also formal kind of ceremonial moments. But some of these images are just sort of capturing a kind of moment of life. Did you want to comment?
Oh, no, it's just something very minor that I need to. You know, like in Ghanaian drinking culture, you mix Campari with beer. And I thought it was my generation that were very inventive. Now that I see these pictures, it goes way back.
This was a great fashion, a great photo of fashion in 1970s.
I did not know that Jesse here was printing these. This welfare to fashion, like I said, September 76. Only for me to know that this case is the one that's in the case outside, my camera case. And that is Tommy Adam Forson at the time.
Oh, are you related to a TA?
He's my younger brother. And this was my elder brother. He passed away from cancer, but I didn't know he had selected them. But nonetheless, it passed. This is a very favorite picture of mine because to capture this with no flash was very difficult. And then Bobby Benson, it took me a while to find him. This was, he now is Monsignor. You know, but my issue was like, how come he was selected for the Pope? The only one that was selected to assist the Pope. Because when we went to Kumasi, it was the Pope's own people that helped him for the Mass. But I find it interesting there. Of course, I was also looking at racial issues. Hey, Italian, hey, what's in the matter, eh? Okay, this is a sports car that Mark Kofi was building. He built some buses, Marco Polo buses.
Yeah.
And this was his own sports car. So this was where I got to the fiberglass stage and then installed the engine. Well, I always asked him how long it would take him for the engine to heat up and the fiberglass to melt down, but I never got an answer. This is the Tapagulu mines. That's the overall mines. I went down about 1 mile, you know, to see what's happening there. They were relaxing. But this is where they were drilling into the concrete, the stone wall to put dynamite in there and blast. And when it's blasting time, which is 2 o'clock, you better move out. They'll tell you to move. But you have to make sure you do it. So this is an example of some of the rock that comes up. You see the gold thing. There's gold in some of the rock. Other times you don't see the gold in it, but you have to crush it and then separate it. But I thought that was nice. And then some of these people were yes. Well, I think they said down there sometimes the oxygen is not there enough. So you can have asthma again or asthma attack or something. But they were
So what about that? What is going on over there?
they brought some there from the mine. That leads us to new blasting. So these are the rescuers. So they go down with oxygen tanks and bring the people out. If there's a problem, they're coming out in front and then behind.
Oh,
Okay? This one just addresses an offbeat thing. When the head of state was in the north, you know, they were doing some sort of dance. It looked very wicked though. This you will never see again. This was or is the Ram Pavilion in 1986. That was in Nutec 86. I had the camera on the tripod, measured the light, and took it. And the same thing with this one here, as it started. Well, with this, the trailer you know is knocked out, knocked down. The top of this thing is off. So unfortunately, I had 4 transparencies, which Jesse saw, and then they did the scan and kept it. So I think it's probably a good storage by now.
So this is the Kwame Nkrumah mausoleum. This is where Kwame Nkrumah's body was reinterred here in 1992. And if you notice the sort of body is behind, and this is the statue of Nkrumah pointing, and it's at the old polo ground where Kwame Nkrumah declared independence in 1957. The other thing, just when you have time to go back, one of the things in putting these images together that we just looked through is I want you to look at people's gaze, where people are looking. Because one of the things I think that's interesting when you try to compare is the images where people are looking at you as a photographer. And I feel like there's a kind of interesting connection where they're sort of, are they impatient or are they looking at you?
They should quite many of you. They never knew what I was up to with the camera.
So it's interesting that, so we try to pair different looks where people are kind of aware of the photographer versus where it sort of blends into
The thing with it is I would put a flash on top of this. This is something just interested me. This girl dressed up for the state football function. This one, that was one of the first mobile phones that Airtel cell phone towers.
I love that.
Yeah, your AT&T projects. This was just a night market show, the way they were doing it. I thought it was part of transportation, you know. But yeah, it doesn't matter. This one was Air Force at the time, okay? Now you see that they've got the six. They are Kenyans. And you see that the people are very chested. They are going to be disciplined by a Kenyan. Whatever they did, I didn't ask. You know? But those days, even if you had a stupid set of head, you know, they would smash a bottle and shave your head with a broken bottle. You know? So
Jerome, when you're taking pictures, how did the soldiers and the people react?
they had seen me around for a while. You know, so it's like I was part of that people. But sooner or later, I was also given a military uniform. Yeah, wear it or not. I think it's on the documentary there. But what did they took me to Australia for training and so on and so forth. You learn what you just say, just do it, you know. So they were when we came. This one here was the day Mokla #1 was being demolished.
oh yeah.
Okay, so you see the dust in the background.
Yeah.
I call him the Lone Ranger. This is one of the trucks that brought in the bulldozers. You know, I was coming up to go down there to see what it was about. I was on the inside, and I was told, "Fortune, take it." You know, and that was Mensa Bedema.
Mensa Bedema?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and they tell me that they're going to blast things. Now, fortunately, I had a zoom lens. Most of the cameramen that do this is actual lens, 15 meters. So I just zoomed in and did what they did.
So one of the, also in terms of the space, one of the things we were thinking about was this kind of sightlines. So thinking about, one of the things I like about your images is the way you look for these kind of focal points, these distant points. So thinking about the troops, thinking about the coffin, thinking about the central image, and then when you're standing there looking down to the smoky marketplace, which has just been blown up, versus the images where there's someone really in your face, these kind of intimate, claustrophobic images. So looking at this image, which is a kind of more intimate image, and the eyes of the people in the market really kind of draw you in, versus this one where you're kind of drawn down into the smoking distance. And this soldier is, you know, this intriguing character. And you said this has never been written.
Never.
So this was one of the ones when I first looked through the images that I was just struck by.
While we're doing this, there was the issue of the mosque being in France.
Yeah.
And And they'll say that Rollins will never bring down the mosque. Okay, we tried that day, whatever they did that day, there was no mosque that was touched. But sooner or later, they brought the mosque down. Because when this was broken down, we didn't know what it was going to be used for, but it was turned into a car park.
Yeah.
So now they call it Rollins Park.
Right spot, yeah.
Right?
Why did they demolish Nampala?
Okay, it was simple. There was so much corruption going on and hoarding. Things were short, but if you wanted to go there. Now, the bad part of it was those days, if you wanted to write a letter overseas, you buy air letter cards. They were all inside Mokola. If you wanted Ghana flag, go into Mokola. If you wanted a gas cylinder, go into Mokola. Now, there's stores. If there's stores like this from here to that wall, and you know it's a deep store, halfway they will cut it off. So either they are goods in there, or they've kept their money in there. And some of you may have remembered that we were told that you have more than 50 cities in the bank. You better explain. Yeah. So when they started last night, the money went to it. This was the day we were coming out.
This is them taking out things from Makola.
Yeah, they have to run out quickly, otherwise you get baptized with a cane.
So they actually, they warned the market when they said a couple of days ahead of time that we're going to destroy the market. So they didn't just show up one day.
No, they showed up, they said they would do it, and they said everything should be out by 6 a.m. But apparently they gave them out to 8 a.m. By 8 a.m., that's everything started. So they didn't keep the goods. The goods were taken from inside the market and put in the roundabout outside Mokola, which was in front of the old mosque. It was around, they put everything there. You know? What else? He was a cadet. You know? I displayed this thing once, and he sent his press secretary to go and take it off. They wanted to find out whether there was a woman in the picture and I taken it out. When I couldn't get close to it, these are things I did. Take the pictures from the TV, because you have to decide whether you want to photograph or something to report with. And then this is the best I could do at the time. You can see here. As for this one, look at the expression on his face, it will tell you the movie was in.
And so for some of these, when we preserve them, we want to keep this one we don't have a negative for actually, so we printed this from a positive. I want to keep the fadedness of it to show the kind of the way in which the image itself was degraded. So. Okay, so these, so the other thing, this is 1982, a conference after the second coup where Rawlings comes back and he's talking to a group of statesmen. Again, we wanted to think about repetition and the ways in which you capture different subtle expressions. None of these would have been for official use, but they show kind of Rawlings in different moments and the kind of temporality of movement. Also, these are kind of showing, you know, a subtle progression of the character of Rawlings as a leader and his charisma. Here, we preserve, these were in a photo album, we don't have negatives for these, so we wanted to print them as if they're in the photo album, and this is 2 shots, sort of protocol shots of Rawlings with Fidel Castro. And Rawlings had gone to Cuba several times when Castro came to visit. These are Rawlings with his wife and with 2 of his children. Why don't you say something about it?
Then Rawlings was a very difficult character to try and smile. Try to get to smile. And I was asked to come and take some photographs. And for the 2 of them, it's basically like they wouldn't smile. She was trying to talk to him. And mine was to figure out how to get them to smile. So I thought, Mr. Chairman, do you remember the first time you kissed your wife? You know, so there are some ways he has a very wide smile. But when he did that, that's when I got my shots. You know, like I said, I was as a family photographer, and here is with Isaac Hayes, Dionne Warwick, and Isaac Hayes, and this one is
Jesse Jackson.
Yes, Jesse Jackson that came here. See, I got closer, and of course, this is Farrakhan, Louis Farrakhan.
And were they all in Ghana with him?
Yes, they came to Ghana.
Okay.
Now you can see his expression. I said, when he's in the mood, he will read the speech. When he's not in the mood, he'll roll it up like that. And then he starts banging, you know, you can see. You don't know what he's saying. This is the Revolutionary Square, where they light the flame every June 4th. But which is, I don't know whether they said it shouldn't be done now. This is when he had been sworn in, especially the guard of honor. One of the, again, I was trying to capture his mood. This was highly unusual, and I never published it. Okay? Like, this was one of 108 photographs that I took. You know? This is okay, like, expression was okay. But most of the time, he was angry. And he warned me. Chalikani no baja. Oh, yes. So I have to be very careful. If something that doesn't please him.
Do you want to translate that?
But, well, in other words, don't let it come out. Chalikani no baja. Don't let it be seen in public. See? And of course, yes, this one.
So, what was the occasion, the situation?
Images, let's thank Gerald Allen Vorson for his work. So take time to look around the Senate, quickly over here if you have questions or you want to just...
I'd like to thank you so much for this explanation, but I would like to ask a question. What was the biggest challenge when you were taking these pictures?
The biggest challenge for when I was able to...
Unforgettable challenge.
The challenge is you have to know that anything can go wrong at any time. Okay? And like I told them, like you saw one of the soldiers were jumping here. I said that this thing is something good. I'm in front. So I'll take what comes in front. You know? I was always wondering whether somebody's going to shoot a bullet. Okay? And most of the time I left home, my family would say, well, we'll see you. Because during the coup, for example, I got caught during and it was about a mile. I got caught at 6 o'clock and I crawled in gutters from La Polyclinic to La Bonne. And I got there at 2 a.m. in gutters. Meanwhile, there was a shoot to kill order out. So it's like you are nervous, you don't drink. In those days, I did smoke, you know, but I was smoking like a carton of cigarettes every 2 days. 5 packets a day. Nerve-wracking.